Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to Prehistoric Kingdom Early Access. My name is Swoop there and we are here in Fercola Mountain Park building a T-Rex paddock or habitat, I suppose. I know a lot of you are going to watch this and go, oh my god, it's very small, Swoop. Yeah, I agree. It is quite a small habitat for the Tyrannosaurus, but at the same time, I think there are a few schools of thought that went behind this. In fact, I actually think it's just a tiny bit bigger than the Torvosaurus habitat that I built a couple of episodes ago. The reason being, I figure this is supposed to be, I guess a zoo, for want of a better word. It is a dinosaur zoo. And rarely, if ever, do you ever have animals in habitats where they would have as much room to roam as they would in the wild. So I think the habitat is fairly big. It is, smaller than what the game says they require. However, I am pretty happy with what I built in the end. I wanted it to be a sunken habitat because, it is the Tyrannosaurus and they are quite dangerous. So I popped a river running through and then I sunk the habitat down, and then I even sunk further down the side where the viewing platform is going to go. You can see I just did that now. And then I'm just moving the T-Rex around just to check and make sure that where they stand near the viewing platform, they really can't reach at all. So I did that first before I put in the backstage areas, and then I went in and did some rock and some detailing, popped in all of the actual habitat first, which is different to how I normally operate. Usually I'll do the viewing platform first, but I decided to go with the habitat first this time and went into the viewing platform afterwards. You can see I often repurpose backstage buildings from the other parts of the park, just simply because I feel like when you have a park such as this, a lot of your backstage buildings are going to look fairly similar, particularly if they were built at a similar time, which this park, I'm going to say, was mainly opened at the same time. They might have added a few exhibits or new buildings here and there, like the mammoth enclosure and the Smilodon, things like that. But most of it, for the most part, this is the old part of the park, and all of their sort of backstage buildings are looking similar. I also thought it'd be nice for the T-Rex to have their own dedicated sort of cave-like shelter, and this would all be fake rock that they've kind of put together so that they have their own little area, but I didn't want them to be able to, or to have the backstage building open constantly so the T-Rexes had shelter. And I'm sure they don't really need shelter. The natural shelter of the trees and the rocks would probably be enough for them, but I thought it'd be nice for them to have their own little shelter there so that they didn't have to constantly be in that backstage building, because that could pose certain risks, I'm assuming. Just having that sort of extra barrier of that big door being down is probably a bit safer. Then I moved into building the viewing platform itself. I wanted it to be a slightly different looking building than anything I've built before, but also I wanted it to be simple. So when I built it, I wanted it to have kind of a two-tiered system roof, and then it to be slightly jutted out in front of the habitat, but not so far that you felt unsafe when you're viewing the T-Rex. And then I have a pathway coming down from the information centre down into the sort of walkway to get to the T-Rex habitat. I am also going to build another carnivore habitat next to the T-Rex habitat. So I kind of have all these carnivores, all the kind of big dangerous carnivores, I suppose, in an area together. And I think that makes sense management wise, because you would want to have all of those dangerous ones together so that if any were to escape or there was to be any kind of issue, then you could close off that section of the park, and then that section of the park would be inaccessible, and then you could evacuate the guests. So I wanted to put them all together for that purpose. Now, while I'm building here, I thought I would talk a little bit about the May Dev Diary that came out this week. I wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up on some of my thoughts on the Dev Diary and what I'm really looking forward to. So in the actual Dev Diary itself, we were given information about food production systems, certain notifications that the game is now going to have to let you know what animals need, what your habitats need, some new food trays and different food types, so some fish and some insects alongside the meat and fruit that we already had. We're also going to get some water troughs, like to pop into habitats for those animals that you don't necessarily want to have pools or lakes or rivers in. We're looking at getting some new animal nurseries because currently we have an extremely large one, so we're going to get a small one and then a medium-sized one as well. There is some information around getting some null barriers, which I am extremely excited for because currently you kind of have to put the in-game barriers in order for the game to recognise the particular habitat as a habitat, I suppose, but now we'll be able to, similar to other games in this style, we'll be able to build a fence without any visible barriers, and we'll be able to create our own, whether that be our own custom ones or sort of those natural rock style barriers. Another few things we're getting, we're going to get some scenery pieces, so we're looking at getting some topiaries, which, to be fair, I've never really been a fan of the topiaries, but they do look good. But I've never been a fan of like the hedge kind of situations, so I guess I'll see how they go. I don't know if they'll particularly suit Fercola Mountain Park, maybe here and there. There is one that I really do like, which has some flowers in the tail of, I think it's the Microraptor, but I'm not entirely sure, which I think is really cool, so I do like that one. And the Acrocanthosaurus also has its own topiary as well. We're also getting some other flat scenery pieces, so some trees and some different dinosaurs that we can pop on walls and such, which I am looking forward to. A little bit more wall art and scenery pieces are always welcome. Then they talk a little bit about the state of development of the game, the ongoing optimization, because I know a lot of people have trouble with the game itself actually sort of not performing at, its best. And they are looking at improving animals, and occasionally they do some lives on Twitch. So if you guys are interested in chatting to the devs themselves, then head on over to Twitch when they announce that they are on a live. If you aren't a part of their Discord and you really are loving or enjoying this game, I would encourage you to become part of the Discord, because then you will get notifications when they're going live, which unfortunately I can rarely join in because they are always around 2 a.m. my time, so it just kind of doesn't work out, but that's okay. I often watch them back just to find out what's gone on. The next thing that I am excited to talk about is the announcement of one of the next dinosaurs coming to the park. It is a small dinosaur, which makes me extremely happy. As you all know, I love those small ones. And it is also a small carnivore, which I believe is the first small carnivore that we have in-game so far, or we are going to get in-game so far. It is the Dilophosaurus, and it looks incredible. I'm going to pop a picture in here for you guys to see what it looks like. I'm sure the majority of you have already seen it. It is going to be amazing, and I cannot wait to get that. Something that the devs did say is that this update was supposed to be already released. It was supposed to be a May release. However, unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, they've had to push the release date back slightly. So that will be coming out, I assume, in the next week or so. So they just had to make sure that they had, fixed up everything that they wanted to do prior to actually releasing that update. And to be honest, I don't mind if they push back these updates as long as they're not constantly delayed. I understand that they have, a lot of issues that they need to sort out with regards to actually making sure that these updates are playable and they don't wreck parts of the game for us. So that is greatly appreciated. It's just great to continue to make sure that we're trying to stay on track with timeframes and things like that. But aside from that, I'm really loving still playing Prehistoric Kingdom. I'm loving the constant updates. I am happy that I started playing the game as early as I did, because it has been really fantastic to see the development as I continue to play. I'm coming up to the end of this build here now, where I'm just building the interior of this viewing building. I popped in some signage, and then I also went ahead and popped in a get to know our T-Rexes or meet our Rexes sign, which I'll show you in the real-time tour at the end. I put in a flower wall, I suppose, or a garden wall, which I'm starting to build now. I really like how it turned out, so I ended up putting one on the outside of this building as well. And there is a small coffee shop outside this building, just so that people can kind of grab something to drink or eat while they are on this side of the park. If you would like to know a little bit more about the T-Rex, I'll pop a card in here because I have already done an episode on the Tyrannosaurus, where I do give you some information and some facts. So I didn't really want to rehash or go over what I've already told some people who've watched my channel. So if you are interested in finding out a little bit about the Tyrannosaurus from what I've read and what I researched, then you can click on that video and have a little watch. I believe it's from my beta park, which was a desert park. So enjoy that. We're coming up to the end of this speed build now, so I will see you in the real-time part at the end. Bye guys. Okay, welcome everyone to the real-time walkthrough. We are here outside the visitor centre, and you can see on this side here I have built a pathway leading down to the T-Rex enclosure. So we're going to head on down that way. I just popped in some seating and so on and sort of cleaned up the pathway itself, popping around, I guess, some barriers here. This is actually the external part of the park, like this is where the park ends on this side, and then there's one habitat which is the T-Rex habitat, and that's kind of the edge of the park. So we'll head on down this way. A few chairs and so on, as I said, and then if we just speed up a little bit, there we go. Perfect. And we come on down towards the T-Rex viewing building. So over here you've got all of the fences and so on that kind of keep that T-Rex in, and then we've got the statue here and the outdoor area here. So there's a little coffee shop down the end. You can get some cakes and coffee, milkshakes, whatever you like, and just some seating outside where you can kind of have a sit down. Then you have the wall garden, I suppose that's called, and then you can head on in through the doorway here to view the T-Rex. So we're going to come straight in, and hopefully there is one. Perfect, just here for us to see. So this one is, I've forgotten the name. I know this one is the female in the back and her name's Amelia. Let's head over and just read this sign because I've forgotten. Igasho or Igasho, I suppose. So meet our Rexes. I pop this here. So Igasho is the darker Rex, and then Amelia is the lighter Rex. Igasho is the male, Amelia is the female. And then I just popped that sort of implied sign so people could actually read a bit about them. And then you have some general information about the T-Rex here. So hello Igasho and Amelia in the back. So if you were a guest and you're kind of standing here, the Rexes, when they are down here, they're really nowhere near as tall as the building itself. So you would feel quite safe. They kind of have their shelter cave over the back here and a little bit of area to roam behind these trees. So they can be hidden when you're standing here. I love that we've kind of got these mountains in the background that really set off the background of this, or the backdrop of this habitat. And then in here you can catch a glimpse of the backstage building. I'm going to put a little waterfall in here as well, maybe in a live stream in the next few days, just to kind of, I guess, pop in something that sort of draws your attention over here that's a little bit more movement based. And then here they are, the two T-Rexes kind of showing off. Going to run through the water. All right, perfect. And then if we turn around and we have a look inside this habitat, we've got another garden wall in here and some seating. And then if we look up, you can see I've got almost a little bit of a skylight in the roof here. And then I've got these windows at the end, so you never really feel boxed in this habitat viewing area. So you can see maybe people walking past here, and then this is actually inside the habitat. So you are jutting out a little bit in the habitat, but it's not particularly far, so you kind of would always feel quite safe. And then if we just head on over here, you can see kind of the coffee shop over here. If there are people sitting down having something to eat, and you could just kind of stand in the corner and you'd be able to get glimpses of the T-Rex if they were back here. What we'll do is we'll pop on out into their habitat now, and you can see kind of how I've structured the building. So there is all of these concrete bollards to hold the building up on the side of the cliff, and it is built into a rock face. You can also see how sort of I've dipped this part of the habitat down so that the T-Rexes, even when they're standing here, they are nowhere near as tall as the building. I've got the river running through, and this will eventually be a waterfall here. And then down this way, they have their little cave structure and this end here. So yeah, it's not that big, but at the same time, as I said in the speed build, it is a zoo, so they would be being fed. They don't need to hunt, and I assume they would be quite content, to be honest, living in here. I'm thinking about down the track in the future, maybe building a little offshoot where they can kind of open the gate and kind of release them into the back area when the park is closed, so they have a little bit more of an area to roam. But I do think that I'm quite happy with how it is at the moment. You can see that I've also popped in a pathway running this way. That's because the park itself is going to loop in a figure of 8, and this is part of that. Just excuse that autosave. This is part of that loop. So the pathway will run this way. I'm going to have a bridge running across this river here, and we will remove all of the floating trees. And you can see that if I zoom right out, here we have the T-Rex habitat, then here we have the Torvosaurus habitat on the edge of the visitor centre, and then if I keep going back, the figure of 8 loop will come around here. So here is the Brachiosaurus viewing area and Argentinosaurus viewing area, and the loop will come right from around here all the way around. So there will be space for 2 more habitats in here. Then the loop runs this way, it runs all the way around, and then you can either come back up through the centre of the park past the desert house and the tropical house, or you can loop this way. You can go on past the Dryosaurus shed to see the Smilodon, all the way around to view the mammoths, and back to this building here, which is the entrance building. So you do have the option when you arrive to either come this way first or to come this way, and then you can finish off going up the middle of the park, or you can kind of loop around. So you really do, you have some options, I suppose, when you arrive. And then, whichever way you go, then you'll need to eventually do the middle section of the park, because there are dinosaurs to see down the middle as well. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your support. If you are enjoying my content, please do give it a like and comment underneath. It really does help out that tricky old YouTube algorithm that often picks and chooses which videos it would like to give voice to and allow more people to see. So the more likes and comments that a video has, the more people will see it. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. I will see you next week for a new habitat. I am building according to one of my recent polls. So there's a little Easter egg for you as to what kind of habitat I am building next. Thanks once again. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye.